Hey card fighters, here we are going to build a deck. So this isn't a deck profile by any means. I took one of the nations that I don't play very often. So you see we've got Violence Bruce here. What we're going to do today is build a deck from scratch. So this is going to be all DBT01, so Genesis of the Five Greats. Nothing from Festival Collection and nothing from the second set yet. This is just going to be, we're building a Violence Bruce deck based off of the card pool we have from those two starter deck and the other DBT01 cards. So this is not a deck profile by any means. This is just going to be kind of the thought processes behind building a deck. Is this going to be optimal? No. Is this going to be competitive? Maybe. But at the same time, we're just looking at the base deck build. The ideas behind deck building, and obviously there's going to be room for improvement later because I haven't built this deck yet myself. I played against it, so I know what I'm looking at a little bit, but I've really only read these cards. I haven't played them yet, so it'll be interesting going forward with that. So, first thing with building a deck is you decide what main boss monster you want to build around, especially with the ride decks in Overdress. You just know your main boss monster is going to be the top of your ride deck. So I've chosen Diablos Violence Bruce. So what do we need for Bruce? Well, first we need a ride deck, and that's kind of easy because Bushiroad actually gave us that. So I'm just gonna pull these down now. So first process is you're gonna go grade 0 Matt. Same starter ability as all the other starters. Diablos Bad Steve. So he's the grade 1. When this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, to choose a card from your soul, call it the Rearguard Circle, and soul charge 1. So it gets you net same soul, but gives you a Rearguard. So if you're going second, you kind of are making that aggressive move right there to be able to just attack for 14 to an 8. So that's more than a 5k shield, which is kind of nice. But so it gives you that ability to get a little bit of an early game rush in. And then we have Anger Richard. When this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, put a Rearguard into your soul and draw a card. So that means that your starter gets sucked right back into soul, and now you have a plus in soul. And a plus in hand, so really not bad. You are given the Rearguard to use for this cost by Steve, but there are decks out there that can snipe that Rearguard, so just keep that in mind. Watch what you're playing against, because if you aren't playing against something with Retire, you don't have to call anything else down, but you might need to call something else down if you are playing against something that retires or removes or imprisons. So there's that. And then we've got Bruce, which we already know what Bruce does. So from here, why did we choose these cards? So at first glance, what we see here is 4 cards, and it's the ride deck that is intended to be the ride deck from the start deck. That's why we chose these cards. The other reason is you have to have a starter, and you might as well go with the one with the theme. If you don't want to, you can go with the other one. I'm about to bring those out. Then you've got Bad Steve. He's got a Vanguard ability. You want cards with Vanguard abilities in your ride deck. Same thing with Anger Richard. He's also got a Vanguard ability, and he synergizes with Bad Steve. So let's pull out the other ride deck cards. So there's him. Pretty sure Deep Sonicar is the other one. And we've got to find... He's not that high up. There he is. Electro Spartan. So why didn't we just start with these? Well, personally, I'm just making sure that my starter matches my Vanguard, so I like to keep the theme. So this guy has the same ability as that. You can play either one of these, but I want to play football players. Alright, so Deep Sonicar. When this unit is placed on Vanguard, circle Soul Charge 1. So that's nice when you're trying to just build and build and build and build Soul. But Final Rush is a deck that won't really kick off until turn 4. So any early game action you can get, you want to take that advantage of that. So honestly, having that extra booster right there to just get that extra power in to make sure your opponent doesn't guard, which they're probably not going to guard anyway, but it feels like it fits the theme better. Plus we've got so much more aesthetic synergy along with it. Deep Sonicar, if you just want that straight up soul charge and you don't want to give up the soul, he's an okay replacement. But today we're not going to play it. And then Electro Spartan. Now he's just obvious why we don't play him, because his ability is when rode upon by Master of Gravity, borrow Magnus. Borrow Magnus is the other main boss unit in this nation, in this set. We're not playing Borrow Magnus, we're playing Violence Bruce. So we're putting Electro Spartan away, just because he's limited to Borrow Magnus, period. Alright, so we've got a ride chain. I am not going to duplicate any copies of these just yet, because we're going to now decide the meat of our deck. So what we need is 30 cards, 4 maximum of each with the same name, to go into this deck. But 30 cards, non-triggers, just normal units or orders. So let's take a peek. First we're going to take a look at our starter deck. So we're going to move all the triggers to the side. And we are going to take a peek at the starter deck. So these are the cards in the starter deck, and what we really want is to think about what Bruce wants. So Bruce wants 5 cards in Soul so he can Soul Blast and stand his front row. He also wants cards that synergize with Final Rush. So we're keeping all that in mind. So we're going to decide what we're going to keep based off of that. So let's start left to right and how I put these down. Time Fissuring Fist Colossus. So when this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, Soul Charge 1. Then if you're on Final Rush, Counterblast 1, and this gets 15k power until end of turn. So he is a beater, so he's a big unit, and he can possibly restand if you're in Final Rush. So let's keep him. So Ice Skull Ionizer, he does nothing. We're going to throw him away. Steam Gunner Brody, when this unit is put into your Guardian Circle, Counterblast 1, it gets shield plus 5k until the end of that battle. He's iffy, he's maybe. He doesn't do anything that Bruce wants to do, but he is extra shield, so because he's iffy, I'm going to put him down. So Acrobat Presenter, when this unit attacks or boosts, if your Vanguard is Bruce, Soul Charge 1, and if you are in Final Rush, Soul Charge 1. So we're going to kind of keep this close up here right now because it has Final Rush in it and it has Bruce in it. So name game, you always want to just at least consider. So we're going to throw that with Colossus right now. So Miranda, she's the PG. I know there's a PG in the set, so that's better than her. Unfortunately, she looks cool. But we're going to ignore that. Brother Soul, straight up Soul Charge 2. Bruce wants Soul Charge or Soul Blast 5, so we're going to go ahead and go with that. So I'm going to be a little bit more picky when I'm up here. So what do we got? If your soul has 5 or more cards, so this is the Blitz order. Honestly, it's only going to work for maybe 1 turn, maybe 2, but there's not very many times where we're going to leave 5 cards behind at the end of a turn after a Bruce turn, so I'm honestly just going to scrap them. So triggers, okay. We've got Direful Doll. So when this unit boosts, if you have 5 or more cards in Soul, Counterblast 1 until end of that battle, and your opponent will call. So it's a Battle Door effect. Honestly, you want to save your boosters for your restands during Final Rush. You're probably not going to be at 5 cards in Soul. I'm just going to scrap her. That's kind of how my mindset is. I might come back to her. Steam Detective Uvarit. So place on Rearguard Circle, choose one of your other units in the same column as this unit. It gets power plus 2, which it's a grade 1, so it's a 2k booster on place until the end of turn. And if you're in Final Rush, it's a 13k booster. It's okay. It says Final Rush on it, so I'm going to bring it down here. He's going to share a spot with Brody as in the maybe pile. But we're going to move on. We're going to high zoom. We're going to move on, and we're going to find out what our other cards do. So Bethana, put this unit into your soul. Choose one of your units, gets 2k. It's really not that much power. It's only putting something in the soul. Sure, it gets us closer to that 5, but I don't even consider that a maybe for Bruce because I know there's so much more out there for Bruce. So this is our 10k booster. I'm going to throw this in the maybe pile. There's a lot of decks out there, or a lot of nations, that these 10k boosters are actually pretty decent just to help you hit magic numbers. I don't think Bruce is one of them, but I'm going to throw them in the maybe pile so I don't go hunting for them in case I'm like missing spots or something like that. I doubt I'm going to be at this point, but we're just not going to do that. Alright, so Megan, if you soul charge this turn, this unit gets power plus 2k. It is a grade 2, so if you soul charged and a 12k grade 2, really not much of a beater. We're going to ignore that. Selfish Engraver. So when this unit attacks, hits, on hit, soul charge 1. At the end of the battle, if your soul has 10 or more cards, put this unit into your soul and countercharge 1. So it is a countercharger. I don't really know how much counterblast I'm going to use in this deck, because right now I've only got 1 counterblaster here in the main pile. I've only got one in the maybe pile. She could end up being a maybe pile. The 10 or more soul part really might not happen. That's really more of a Borrow Magnus skill, but we'll see. This one, so counterblast 1, some more counterblast to make it better, but soul charge 1, then choose one of your units. It gets power plus 10k until end of turn for every 5 cards you have in soul. So you can get 10k out of this. You also get to draw a card. But at the same time, you're soul blasting so much, but you should be building that soul during your main phase, that this might not be bad. That's a maybe pile. I don't know if it fits Bruce. It definitely fits Borrow Magnus, because 10k for every 5 soul you have. Borrow Magnus will go, 10, 20, 30. Eventually he builds soul big time, but we're not going Borrow Magnus. So, alright. So we've got our PG. That's definitely going in the deck. If you have access to the SP, throw an SP in there. Flex some shinies. Throw the other one away. Protobulb Dragon. So it says Final Rush. When this unit attacks or boosts, so it's versatile on either. So basically any attack that's involved. If you're in Final Rush, +1, put another rear guard in your soul, choose a card from your soul and put it into your hand. So there's a lot of factors to this. If you can get another Persona ride out of it, you can get anything you've soul charged blindly out of it, so you can get your PG back, your over trigger back, or that 50k shield. So he's actually pretty decent. He's going to go in the pile. He's most likely making it into the deck. Shadow Leak Magician. So it's got resist. Meh. I know there's some retire effects out there, but I feel like it doesn't do anything for my deck. I like resist cards, and maybe a resistance deck might be a cool thing, but unless it does something else for my deck, resist isn't that great. When this unit, alright, so let's go on to Curtis. When this unit is played, so he says borrow Magnus already, so, and then if your soul has 10 or more, which we're soul blasting 5 every turn, yeah, you're going away, you're a borrow Magnus dude. And then over trigger, like I said, we're going to take the SP, so we're going to put that in the trigger pile. Alright, Gungunneram. When this unit is placed on rearguard circle, soul charge 1. So on place, soul charge 1. If you're playing against Prison, it's really nice because you leave that out there and they need to get to their 3-card threshold. They're going to take that no matter what. Or they're going to give up their power and their drive checks. So, look, honestly, he's nice because he is on place against Prison. But on top of that, Soul Blast 3 and draw a card. If you have enough soul charge going on, Bruce won't mind. Sometimes you can get up to that 8 soul, but he's on play soul charge. He also has an SP, so we're going to flex the SP. Then, Marjorie. So when this unit attacks, if you're in Final Rush, so she's another Final Rush card, put one of your other rear guards into soul, draw a card, soul charge 1, and this unit gets power plus 10k until end of turn. So she gets 10k, it's until end of turn, so she can restand. You can use, this is once per turn, so you can't really use it again. But that means you don't have to pay twice for her skill. So she is a 23k beater on top of a restand. And she gets to draw you a card, soul charge 1, and put another card to soul. So you're getting your soul for Bruce. And she synergizes really well with, I'm going to grab the SP real quick. She synergizes really well with Protobulb, because if you throw something in there that you want an on-place, like a Gungunneram, or anything else that's on-place, or even like the Time Fisher and Fist Colossus, which you probably don't want to get rid of that, because you probably want to restand that, but I'm just saying on-place abilities, she can take back, you know, Protobulb can take it back, so she synergizes really well with that, so she's really good for the deck. And then, next we're going to move on to Eden. Eden's a scary card. I hate playing against this card. I always have to guard him, because if you're in Final Rush, it gets 5 cancel on the turn, well, continuous through the turn. And then if it's restood by a card effect, it gets an extra critical. So second attack is stacked for 1. And the reason I have to always guard this card is because when this unit attacks, counterblast 1 and choose one of your opponent's rear guards. So when the attack hits, you get to pop something. And you potentially get to do that twice because it's not once per turn. So Eden's just really good for that purpose. And then we got Borrow Magnus, who's our other boss monster. We're gonna get rid of him. Now hold on a second. We didn't look at these. So we don't want another grade 0 in the deck. Deep Sonicer. During your turn, if your soul has 10 or more cards, this unit gets power plus 10k. Unfortunately, we're not keeping that much soul, so we don't want him either. And then Electro Spartan. So his Vanguard ability says Borrow Magnus, but when this unit is placed, cost, counterblast 1, and soul charge 2. So he might be an okay on place. So once again, he can go in the maybe pile for Bruce. He probably isn't going in the deck, but you know, right now we've got, so we've already thrown away like 17 cards. We've we've got our ride chain right here. We're going to move that up there. We've got our triggers that we're going to decide on later, based on what we're doing and what we're trying to do. Now let's take a look at our cards in our for sure pile. So here's the thing with certain cards. You know what your staples are going to be, usually when you're building your deck, but if you don't, that's fine. You can kind of start to gauge what they're going to be. What we're looking for is how are we going to build this deck to be effective and fun. For one thing, PG. Always for PGs. Now we don't need to worry about writing anymore, so we don't need to worry about having a certain amount of grade 1s, a certain amount of grade 2s, and a certain amount of grade 3s. That being said, we get to go ham. So what we want is a balance of our soul charge and then our attacking units, and our toolbox. So here's what I'm going to start saying. I'm just going to start considering staples. Brother's Soul is a staple. It's probably not going to be a full 4 of card because it's not a body on the field. So we're going to put that over here. He is going in the deck, but we don't know how many. But Eden is a staple. He's pressure. Colossus is right now because he's just being overshadowed by so many other cards. Marjorie, staple, 23k beater. Protobulb, great toolbox, good staple. And Gunneram, I consider that to be staple as well. Presenter, once again, goes with that. So we're going to real quick. These guys, they're all getting 4 copies. That gives us 10 more spaces to work with. So that gives us all these guys up here and some of these guys down here maybe. But let's spread our deck out. Alright, so I've got these guys spread out now. So we've got 20 cards up here that we know are going into the deck. And then we know... Alright, so defense, beater, and then toolbox. So we're kind of balanced already. Let's double check our ride chain, see if we want any extras of those. So he's a beater, but he's not as good as that, and he's not as good as that, and he's not as good as that. So he's just going to be a ride chain card. And then Steve, he's a decent booster, but he doesn't boost better than that. So, and then that's also an okay booster. So we're going to just kind of keep those. Let's also look at our grades. We're never calling a PG, so don't care. 2, 1, 3, 1. So we've already got a decent amount of boosters, 8 boosters, and then we're going to have a little bit more with that. So 10 cards. We've already got enough beaters. I kind of want an equal balance of these guys in there. So I feel like having the extra booster would be okay, but then you realize when this unit attacks or boosts, if your Vanguard is Bruce, Soul Charge 1, and if you're in Final Rush, Soul Charge 1, there's no May, so you kind of have to do that. It's not exactly kosher on my part, so we're just going to leave him at 3, so that, because eventually we're not going to want to use him. And then, so that now leaves us with 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 23, so 7 more spots. So we can do a full playset of something, or we can maybe throw in some tech. Like, I've already got 8 beaters, and I'm probably going to do 2 of these guys, to be honest. So, how much am I counterblasting? That's only on head. That counterblasts. That counterblasts. So, I've got potentially 6, maybe 7 cards, because I might bring that up. And then 11 cards that counterblast. We had a counter charger down here. but the counter charge is only if we're at 10 or more souls, so it's not really even worth just running in there. I know the on-hit pressure of soul charging, but she has to hit, and we already got all the beaters in the deck. She's nice, but not that nice. So, but also on top of that, it's telling me I don't want to run you to just have a counterblast 1 for 5k shield. So final rush here. That's only on place, and we already got enough boosters. Once again, we've already got enough boosters, so we don't need that. Roll you insects. Yeah, it draws us a card, so it replaces itself. But it's counterblast, so we already got that much counterblast. Don't want to run him. And then counterblast the soul charge. We've already got enough free soul charge, so not really interested. Actually, all these cards I put in the maybe pile, after seeing all of these that I'm putting up here, I'm just not interested. Just we've used that much counterblast. So honestly, I think I'm just going to go ahead and make him a 4 of. So we're going to have 12 potential beaters to go and restanders. So what do we got? 4, 16, 20, 24, 27. So 3 more spots for Brother Soul. And that's how I decide how many Brother Soul I have. Because like I said, all of these cards down here get to go in the reject pile. Bye-bye. So there is our deck. So I'm going to go ahead and organize this real quick by grade and what they do. So beaters up here. And then we've got our boosters and toolbox down here. We've got our protection and we've got more toolbox. So there's our 30 cards. So what are we doing with this deck? We are putting down big front row units and we're restanding them. So it's kind of putting pressure through attacks. Obviously, we want our overtrigger. So we're taking 1 overtrigger no matter what. Now we've got the options of what do we want? Do we want fronts, draws, crits? We know we want heals. That's just the starter deck to overtrigger. We already got a better overtrigger, so we're going to ignore that. Alright, so we always want 4 heals. Now, I know I said up here when I was working with the ride chain that I want an equal amount of, aesthetic synergy. So we're going to go with Ariana. She's just going to be our heal. We can only have 4 in a deck, so we might as well just choose the one that aesthetically fits. Don't get me wrong, I like this card. She's like female Doc Ock, but for now, I already said I'm building this for aesthetics. So as far as those choices go, we're going to go with the aesthetic choices. Alright, so we've got crits and we've got fronts. And crits are nice because they will make sure something deals extra damage and it gives it the extra power. Fronts are nice because you're giving your entire front row that is restanding that power. And then we've got draws. And draws, obviously, once again, draw your card and give you a unit plus power. But they don't have that much shield. So that's kind of a minus on them. On top of that, Anger Richard will draw us an extra card. Did we put that much card draw into this deck? Marjorie, I believe, draws this card. Yep, Marjorie draws us a card. Gungaram will draw us a card, and we got enough soul charge in here to not worry about that 5k. Protobulb Dragon gets us a card back from Soul, so that's still plussing a little bit without decking out. So we got a few things drawing us cards. I think we can ignore this for now. And then what I would do is I would judge how my hand is during my first few games, and then I might replace something with draws. Just depends on how well my hand stays filled. And then how do we want to do fronts and crits? Like, it's almost an equal thing in my opinion. We're restanding, which tells me I want fronts. And then crits are just awesome pressure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do at least 4 of each from the starter deck. And then we're going to count our triggers. So 13 triggers, we can add 3 more triggers, which is going to be split up between these two. And what I think I'm going to do 2 more crits and 1 more front. So 5 fronts, 6 crits, 4 heals, and 1 over trigger. And there we have it. Alright, so we have our deck for Violence Bruce. Next steps would be playtesting. So when we start playtesting, we can try to remember the other cards we looked through within the Dark States Nation. And anything we might feel that the toolboxy that we might need or anything like that as we're playtesting, we can just swap in and out as we're playing around with this. But we've got a general base build of how we are going to run our deck. So like I said, next step would be playtesting. So we might do some of that later. We'll have to see from there. I've been Vanguard Ace. I'll see you guys next time.